All right, everyone, we are back at the Who is Will Sims podcast. Just getting an update as we're heading into spring here. Got a lot of cool stuff in the works coming up in the spring and the summer here, including a whole tour. So let's get into it. I always feel like someone's like trying to break into my room. There's always weird stuff happening. All right. So first up, let's get started here with the tour we got going on. Yeah. Let's change that real quick. It's getting a little weird. All right. Yeah, we got a big tour coming up. I've got a big show coming up at the 8x10 in Baltimore on Thursday, April 23rd. It's a big deal because the 8x10 is actually the first place I ever played live music at. Aside from the 5th grade talent show where I sang Iris karaoke, that was the first time I really got up on stage with my guitar and sang some songs. And yeah, it sucks that it's closing down. There's still a little hope that someone will buy the place and keep it open, but it's not looking great at the moment. And so we're doing a big show there. I put together an amazing lineup. Old Eastern, who are an incredibly talented band. Feather and Flask, who are friends of the podcast. Another great band. And then we have Ariella Joy and the Silver Lining and Callum playing. So it's an incredible lineup. Make sure you go check out those artists and support music. And I'm going to be on tour in April and May. I'll be hitting North Carolina, South Carolina, Delaware, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania. I'll be hitting this mid-Atlantic region a good bit, hosting songwriter showcases and just, trying to get out there and promote the music. So make sure you head to my website, whoiswillsims.com. Check out what I got coming up. If you're in the Baltimore area, get some tickets to the 8x10. I know it's a Thursday night, but, just pretend we're Guns N' Roses and, this is the big show for your week, and come out and party. The show will be over by 11:30. Everyone will get home, have a good night's rest. We're going to have a good time that night. So we've got the songwriter showcases. I had some guests on the podcast recently. Looking forward to sharing some new episodes coming up soon. I've got a couple other people that are coming in soon, and excited for you to see what's going on. So, and I always forget to say, but make sure you, wherever you're listening, you subscribe, you like whatever you can. If you're on YouTube, like it. If you're on a podcast platform, if there's a way to follow me or give me any kind of feedback or rate me, please do that. It helps me out a lot. It's I didn't start this to turn it into anything crazy, but it is cool seeing that people are listening. And, I do this to, it's kind of therapeutic in a way, just sitting here and talking to people and knowing that someone out there might be listening and might be interested, But, when I have these guests on, my whole goal is to promote them and get to know them and hopefully help them reach a new audience out there. And so anything you can do to help, anything you do like that just helps the algorithm push us further. So aside from that, it's been a pretty slow winter. Work's been slow, gigs have been slow. We had a nice little snowpocalypse here in Maryland. Luckily, I only lost one gig because of that, and we were able to reschedule. But I spent a good amount of time just helping out at work and working on new music. Been in with Tony, working on some new stuff. and yeah, ingesting a lot of media, which I'm going to talk about today. You know, some of it is old news, but sometimes if I see something, and even if it's old, I like talking about it, and maybe someone will go check it out. But let's get started here. Let's start with some of the shows I've been watching. So I just finished A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I was pretty behind on the Game of Thrones stuff. I really liked. I loved Game of Thrones. I loved the whole show. Um, I'm not one of those people that's like hypercritical of everything. I know at some point I might rewatch it and feel differently, but I had kind of binged the show kind of leading up to the last season. I think maybe I watched like the seventh season right after it came out, so it was pretty new. And then I just had to wait like a couple years to watch the last season. But it was generally like the whole show was pretty fresh in my mind. So there was a lot of things in the last season of Game of Thrones that I felt like was paid off pretty well. And like there were certain references that if you hadn't watched season one since it came out, you might not like pick up on all those little details. But there was a lot of stuff like that that I appreciated. And I do feel like the last season was a little rushed. But I also like could see where it was going. So like to me, it didn't feel like they were making these, sudden changes and drastic decisions. Like it all felt like stuff that was, that was leading up to that anyway, and I guess instead of dragging it out, they just kind of condensed it and put it out, which ultimately I respect because there's nothing I hate more than when I'm watching a show and I feel like there's like a filler episode and I'm like, we could have just combined this with another episode and gotten on with it. Like, I want to enjoy stuff and not feel like my time is being wasted. Really loved Game of Thrones. And then I got caught up on House of the Dragon in the last month or so before watching Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And there's a lot of things I like about House of the Dragon. To me, that show feels rushed in some ways. Like, to me, the character work in House of the Dragon is nowhere near as good as Game of Thrones. Like, when I watched Game of Thrones, all those characters were like, it was really interesting what was happening with all of them. You really wanted to know each story. Every time it went to a different character's story, you want to know exactly what was going on with them. Whereas like with House of the Dragon, it's kind of like I like some characters, and some characters I really don't find that interesting. It's like they're there just to be that part of the story, but they don't ever do anything interesting enough with them to make you like want to know more about them. Game of Thrones always did that where like, take like Jaime, for example. Like you didn't really like Jaime for a while, but then eventually, once they hit you with his backstory and stuff, then you start to feel for him and start to understand him a little more. And then characters like Cersei and stuff that like you don't like him, and then all of a sudden you see him go through some stuff and you kind of respect him a little bit. Even though you don't like him, you respect him. So to me, House of the Dragon kind of suffered in that way. Like there's certain characters like when they're dying, they give them like a great death scene. But then I'm like, this character has been on screen for like 5 minutes of this whole show, and I'm supposed to like feel bad that they're dying. Like that, it's just little stuff like that where I'm like, all right, like you could have tried a little harder. But that said, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I loved it. I loved the whole show. It's just little things it's really mostly about these two characters, but then like all the other characters in the show are also like really well written and well acted, and I'm really excited to see what happens with all of them. Like, to me, this is like a really great addition to the Game of Thrones show. House of the Dragons is good. It's just of the three shows, it's my least favorite right now. So, but I'm excited for season 3. I saw that trailer. I'm pumped, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So, there you go, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Another show I watched recently that I loved was Wonder Man. So, when I was a kid, Wonder Man was a character I knew from like certain games and certain cartoons and stuff. I didn't really like know him that well. I wouldn't even say that I was like excited for this show. Like I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited for a lot of Marvel things. Like if it's Marvel, I'll probably watch it. That doesn't mean I'm gonna love it. There was a few shows that I didn't like that much. There's a few shows that I feel like should have gotten more love. Like I feel like Ironheart was a pretty solid show, all things considered. Like, and I think the whole point of Marvel TV should be like, if you want more, it's there. Like, not every show has to be like, oh, here's more Iron Man, here's more Captain America. Like it should be a way to explore like these new characters for people that want to go into that realm. And I feel like a lot of people just treat it like, oh, well, if it's not a part of the bigger picture, what's the point? Like, but I felt like Ironheart did a great job with that character and giving her a good story and like a great journey to go on and then still being able to tie it into the larger universe. And I feel like they did the same with Wonder Man here. I feel like they really nailed him. They made it a really fun, interesting story. They brought in Ben Kingsley from Iron Man 3 and Shang-Chi. He did a great job, and it really just elevated the show in a way that you didn't expect. And, obviously it's not for everybody. Like, if you just want explosions and stuff, not really a lot of that in this show. There's times where it feels like Atlanta, where there's just like weird stuff happening and you're just kind of going with the situation. But overall, I thought it was really cool, and I heard they just announced season 2 is coming. Really excited to see what they do with that. And while we're on the topic of Marvel, I just watched Daredevil Born Again season 2, episode 1, and really excited for that show. Obviously, usually the first episode of most seasons is just like setting up everything, but the reviews sound really cool, so I'm excited to see what happens with that show. And yeah, if you're on the fence about Wonder Man, I say check it out. It's interesting, it's funny, and you never know if these characters will pop up again at some point. But the move should be like, hey, if they pop up and you like them in a movie, you can go back to watch the show and enjoy it. It's not like, oh, I didn't watch the show and now I have no idea what's going on. Like, But usually Marvel's pretty good about that. They don't always, they usually have at least a little bit of exposition so they don't leave you hanging, ASMR. All right. That's pretty much for what I got for TV shows right now. I'm also rewatching It's Always Sunny for like the 15th time, I just love that show. It's so funny. All right, let's get into some movies. Oh, by the way, while I'm on the topic of TVs, I did watch a couple comedy specials. I saw Cat Williams' new special, and I saw Marcelo Hernandez's special. And while like sometimes I watch these comedy specials, they're just kind of on in the background, but I think both of those guys are really hilarious. So I think Marcelo Hernandez is one of the best faces they've had on SNL in a while. And Cat Williams has always just been hilarious to me, so definitely recommend that. All right. So we'll get into some movies that I've seen. First one I watched recently was We Bury the Dead. This is kind of more like an indie horror, thriller, drama type movie. It's not really it's not full-on horror. It's kind of like a zombie film in the way that, like, these people kind of die and come back, and like some of them are less animated and some of them are more aggressive. It's really like that's really just kind of like a background thing that's happening in the movie. The movie is really about Daisy Ridley's character looking for her husband, and it's really just kind of about grief and loss and trying to find closure. And it was good. It was a good dramatic movie. Like Daisy Ridley's great. I really feel like she was really underserved in the Star Wars sequels. Like she's a really great actor, and I think that she's going to keep doing amazing work. And I think it really shows in this movie. She does a great job in this movie. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. There's some really good visuals in this movie too. There's some really good camera work. There's some good just scenic moments where you're seeing just like the what state the world is in, and it's really well done stuff. So I just wanted to shout out that movie. It's not going to like blow you away, but I thought that it was a really interesting and well-made movie. Sorry. All right, the next movie I got is The Rip. So, obviously Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, two powerhouse actors. Ever since Good Will Hunting, Dogma, when I was a kid, like those movies, these two guys have been like people that I've loved seeing in films. So anytime they're in something together, I'm always interested. And this looked like a good, action thriller type film. And it is for the most part. I'd say like the first 3/4 of it is like really tense and on the edge of your seat. And then like the last quarter, it kind of starts to really kind of get weird and convoluted and kind of goes off the rails a little bit, in my opinion. But it's about like, these guys that are, doing a raid, and they're trying to collect money from these drug dealers and stuff, and there's a lot of layers to it. And Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are good. What's the actor's name? The guy who played Glenn in The Walking Dead. I feel dumb for not knowing it, but he's really good in the movie. Like everyone's good in the movie. It's just like the story kind of like towards the end just kind of gets like really. It kind of loses what was, I thought, really keeping it interested in the first half of the movie. So, but if you're looking for a fun, just good time movie, like this is a good one to check out. But other than that, you always kind of hope for something that's going to really surprise you, and there were some good surprises in this movie, but nothing like mind-blowingly good. So, all right. All right. So I know it was just Oscar season, so I was trying to check out some of the movies, and one of the ones I watched was One Battle After Another, and I thought it was a fun time. Didn't blow me away. I know that this movie was getting a lot of hype, and everybody in it's great. Like it's never like the actors or anything that I feel like let me down. Sometimes it's like you're hoping for like something that's going to hit you and have like a real meaningful impact. And I don't know, like this movie just never clicked with me. Like I get like the overall story of like the struggles that the characters are facing, and like how it ties into the real world today, but just didn't really connect with me that much. I thought that there was a lot of incredible performances. Leonardo DiCaprio is always good. Sean Penn is very memorable in this movie, let's say. Benicio del Toro is always just great. Like he could be eating a bag of potato chips for the whole movie and it would be entertaining. But I thought Chase Infinity did a great job. She was like kind of had to deal with a lot of stuff in her own. and like she could just tell she was really just she was giving really a great performance the whole movie. So what is happening downstairs? Um, yeah, so it's a good time. It's another one of those movies where it's hard to say, like, it's hard for me to say who it's for. There's like not enough action for it to be an action movie. It's really just kind of like a drama, like a thriller drama. I keep saying thriller. I don't know if it's a thriller, but there's comedic elements, there's action, there's like a little bit of action, but mostly it's just kind of like people kind of going after each other the whole movie. So it's just a big circle of people going after each other. Ooh, yeah. All this talking. All right. And then the other one that I watched that has been getting a lot of recognition is, of course, Sinners. And I did really enjoy this movie. This movie is like my kind of movie, vampires and, just very simple plot, very straightforward. Tons of incredible actors giving great performances. But overall, like I wasn't like as blown away as I thought it would be. I thought the music was really good. Obviously, like that's been getting a lot of praise. I thought all the performances are really good. I know Michael B. Jordan's getting a ton of awards notice for this. To me, that's like old news. Like Michael B. Jordan's been great like for so many years now. I was like, I'm surprised that this is the movie that he's getting a bunch of awards for because he's done a ton of other really great work. This to me kind of felt like a very Dusk to Dawn-esque type of movie. But that said, like so many people are giving incredible performances in this movie. So, and I've watched interviews and stuff where they talk about how they made this movie and the process is incredibly fascinating. And Ryan Coogler's an amazing filmmaker. So, all in all, I thought it was a great movie. I like it's funny. It's funny that like a vampire movie is winning all these awards and stuff. Like you would think that is not the kind of movie that would get like Oscar nominations and stuff. But really, really glad I got to see it, and I definitely recommend checking it out. It's definitely if anything, it's just an entertaining, fun time watching these people deal with these vampires. So good stuff. All right. Next, I'm going to get into some video game action. So get ready for the Nerd Fest. First up, oops, what did I do there? I don't even know what I did. First up, we got the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which it's hard to call it a remake. I know that it's basically, and it's technically a remake, but essentially, it plays just like the original game, and it's just with like updated graphics, modern graphics, and they added some stuff here and there, but generally, it's essentially a brand new game, but it's the old game just for the modern generation. And the original Metal Gear Solid 3 was my first Metal Gear Solid game, like legit game, and that's like one of those games. It was such a memorable experience. Like it was way different than anything else I played, and the story was like interesting and out there and weird. But I just remember like the boss fights being so memorable. Specifically, the sniper battle with the end is like one of the best experiences ever. Like I remember probably like playing the game for like 2 hours trying to figure out how to take him down, and kept seeing him, but seeing him too late, and he would snipe me, and then I'd be like, and then he would run away. But yeah, generally just that game was, made me a fan of the series, and then I went back and played I think I played Twin Snakes. I don't think I've ever played the original. I know I need to get the collection and play that one. And but I played the Twin Snakes remake on GameCube, and that was really cool. And then I played the second one, which was on PlayStation 2 at the time. Both really great games. And then sadly, I've never played 4. I'm actually really excited they announced the next collection coming out will have 4 in it because I'll finally get to play it. And I played the 5th one, which was a really fun game too. That was one of the best Metal Gear Solid games. It's a shame it wasn't finished, but generally, I've played enough of the series to know like how people feel about it. I've kind of pay attention. I know a lot of people didn't like that this remake was being done because of the stuff with the creator and like kind of how he was kind of removed from the series before the last game was done. And people kind of felt like Konami was really kind of being a-holes to a lot of developers and stuff at the time, but particularly to Hideo Kojima. So I imagine a lot of people were not happy that they were doing this, but in my opinion, like I'd rather they keep the series alive, and even if it's just, hey, we're going to make faithful remakes for the modern generation, I'm cool with that. Maybe if they get enough interest back, they can bring back, maybe then Hideo Kojima will come back and actually like make a new game. But, that's the hope. But I know some people will never let that bad taste go away, but really it's like just about, time heals all wounds. So hopefully the success of these remakes will lead to a new game, maybe. Damn. All right. So, I'm a couple years late, but I did finally play Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And wow. What a game. Man. Obviously, I played Breath of the Wild a lot. I wasn't like an original Zelda fan. The first one I think I played was Twilight Princess when it came out, because it was like around the time. It was probably because Lord of the Rings was like a big deal, and so like the idea of being an elf running around with a sword and a bow and arrow seemed really exciting. But Twilight Princess was really awesome to me. Like that was like such a unique, fun experience. And then I didn't really play any of the other games until I got a Switch, and then I played Breath of the Wild because it was such a hype thing. And I think I was a couple years behind that game too when it came out. But I probably played well over 100 hours of Breath of the Wild, and I've definitely put more than 100 hours into Tears of the Kingdom. But and I did go back and play Ocarina of Time, which was also great. But Tears of the Kingdom, man, like, wow, what an experience. Like, that's a game I could easily, like, go back into and probably play for another 100 hours and just explore. There's something about games where you explore the world, specifically if, like, you can unlock map fragments and, like, be able to view more of the world and feel like you're exploring and seeing things. Like, that stuff is great to me. That's like one of the reasons I love the Metroid Prime games, or it's just the exploration. And yeah, this game did not disappoint. I mean, as soon as you jump off the first sky island and you're falling through the air, you're just like, man, this is gonna be an experience. And then the first time you go underground and you're like, wow, like there's a whole other world down here. Like, you're just like, man, they really went above and beyond with this. And it was a fun game, man. I finally like had to go, all right, like I've been playing for over 100 hours. Let's go fight the final boss. And it was a great, intense battle, and it felt climactic and felt like I'd really gone on a journey and, got to see the end of the story. And can't recommend these games enough. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people really, they love comparing games, and it's like easy to look at a game like Tears of the Kingdom and be like, that game's $70 and I could play it for 200 hours and never get bored. And then you get people that are like, all right, well, I bought this game and I played it for 12 hours and like, that's it. And I respect both approaches. Like, I like the idea that I could hop on a game and beat it in a couple days and experience the story. And if it's a good story, then it's worth it, you know? And then there's always something daunting about starting a game like Tears of the Kingdom and knowing that you're going to be giving up a good portion of your life to really experience it. So, but Tears of the Kingdom did not disappoint. I had a great time just exploring all the different areas and fighting all the bosses and just really diving deep into it. So glad I finally got to play that. And then lastly, we have Resident Evil Requiem. Hoo-wee, let me tell you. All right, so brief history of my Resident Evil experience. I mean, I've played pretty much every game in the series, minus some of like the rail shooter type games and like the handheld games and stuff. But essentially, actually, the only ones I haven't really played from the main series are like the original Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil 2, the original Resident Evil 3. I played the remakes. I played the GameCube remake of the first one, and I played the modern remakes of 2 and 3. And generally, like, my experience with Resident Evil is always an enjoyable one. It's not often I play one that I don't like. Obviously, like, there's things that could be done better. Like, I understand people weren't happy with the Resident Evil 3 remake because they cut a lot of content. It was a really short game. That said, I just replayed it recently in like a couple hours. I, just kind of ran through it, and it's a lot of fun if you think of it as like an arcadey type shooter. But I understand like there's not as much depth to it as other games. But I really liked Biohazard, Resident Evil 7, and then Village was another one I really liked. I thought that was a fun game. But this felt like the first like real sequel to the series since like Resident Evil 6, other than Chris Redfield showing up in the last two games, like this felt like, all right, we're finally kind of seeing where things are going. And I played it. I was really excited for this. I stayed up. Well, I slept. I came home from work one day. Slept till like 1 or 2 in the morning, got up, made some food, went downstairs, fired up the game, played it for 14 hours straight, beat the whole game. Yeah, of course, can't breathe now. And yeah, I've got opinions, I've got feelings about it. It's a lot of fun. It's a great game. Like, I can't deny that. Like, despite any gripes I may feel, any disappointment I may have, any frustrations, it's still a great game. I feel like my issues with this one were just kind of like story choices. But I'll kind of run through the game real quick and give you like a brief rundown. So, most of the game you're playing is the girl, Grace, or most of the first half of the game you're playing is Grace. And you're in like this, this like medical hospital where naturally they're experimenting on people, turning them into zombies. And, that first half of the game was really tense. Like, there's a lot of great sequences of tension and horror, on the edge of your seat, running for your life. A lot of trial and error, dying type stuff. And yeah, it's just a really fun, like, Resident Evil experience. and you kind of switch back and forth between Grace and Leon throughout the game. And when you go to Leon, he's full on John Wick, cutting up zombies, shooting them, blowing their heads off, kicking them around, and it's awesome stuff. And then the later half of the game, it kind of switches back. It kind of goes more to like the Leon full action game thing. And I think like some of the things that the game was missing was like one of the big things is you go back to Raccoon City, which is like a big thing from the earlier part of the series. And there's a little bit of like new areas you're exploring. There's a little bit of like, hey, you're exploring areas from the earlier games that are in ruins, and all that's great. It does feel a little bit lengthy at times where you're just kind of going through these areas, fighting all these enemies, and it feels a little Resident Evil 6-y to me, where it's just like full-on action for a long time without anything really like tense like happening. And then it kind of divulges into like a boss rush mode where you're just kind of fighting like one boss after another, which is fun, but there's also like a certain element of the story that I felt like was lacking, which I'll get into in a little bit. But generally, the gameplay is awesome. The controls are awesome. It makes me really want like a Mercenaries mode, because that's like a thing that it would be great for. And then, the ending is pretty well done. They have a pretty good like good ending, bad ending type thing where they kind of. I felt like I was paying attention to the game and I picked the right ending because of that. But they kind of like trick you because Leon tells you to do one thing and you gotta choose to do the other thing. But overall, like the way it wraps up, kind of felt like, all right, just another. It felt like another Monster of the Week type adventure for the game. Like, say what you want about Resident Evil 6, but it felt like there was a lot of big things happening in that game that affected the overall world. And that was really interesting. And they never really kind of dove into that again. But this game, felt pretty contained. Obviously there's always somebody that's trying to get the next thing that's going to destroy the world. And it was funny that there was like a bit of a plot twist regarding that. But to me, so the main things that I didn't like about the game were, one of the things that I've always thought was fun about the Resident Evil games is kind of starting off with next to nothing and then like building up throughout the game until you're like this powerhouse of a character. Now, I can understand why they didn't go that route with Grace. Like, I felt like sometimes they do that with characters and you're like, this person would never do that, So I feel like I understand why they didn't do that with Grace. But, like Ethan Winters was a character that was kind of like that. He started off with nothing and then he ends up with a pistol and then next thing he's got a shotgun. You just kind of like go through the game as you're dealing with more and more threats. You get better and better weapons. You have more of a way to fight back. And this game kind of lacked that a little bit. Like, it was kind of like when you're playing as Grace, you were always under-equipped. You were always, like, not really able to defend yourself. You were kind of relying on stealth and, like, using the game's mechanics to kind of survive. And then, like, when you were Leon, you were just mowing down enemies and nothing could really stop you if you knew how to play the game properly. My favorite thing in these games is, especially these last couple games with Leon, because in Resident Evil 4 Remake, he had the knife, and then this one he has, like, the hatchet, but it's like, you've literally got this, like, 50-foot tall monster, like, slamming its tentacle down on you, and he can just, like, parry it with the axe, just, like, pling, like, that giant tentacle didn't smash me. So it's, like, a little bit funny like that. I much preferred, Resident Evil 3's like dodging system, like at least, because that's like something that you could do in Resident Evil 4 is dodge, but it was like a quick time event as opposed to like like a skill related thing where it's like, all right, like if you can just learn the attacks and time your dodge as well, then you could get really good at the game like that. But the parry thing, I guess, is like an equivalent type thing. But there's just time where it's like giant like 50-pound trolls like about to punch you, and you're just like pling and like block with your knife. It's hilarious. But yeah. So the overall progression of the combat in the game kind of felt it didn't feel like there was a combat progression. And my favorite thing too is like Leon basically when it gets to like his main portion of the game, he just gets like a point system. It's like, all right, well, you kill enemies and you get points and you can use those points to buy more weapons. It's like, okay, there's not even a merchant. Like you're just it just kind of lost a lot of that steam there. But so there's that. And then the other main thing that bugged me is that there's like two characters that show up and they're obviously implying that they're certain characters, but they never really like confirm or deny it. And like the implications of including those characters is like so huge that it's like, all right, well, it kind of feels weird that you didn't address it. Like, you got one character that shows up that's basically like, you think it's a revived version of a dead character, and you're like, okay. Then they call him a different name, even though he looks like the guy, sounds like the guy, literally has the same voice actor as the guy, has all the same moves as the guy. They just call him something different. And you're just supposed to be like, okay. Other than like some minor, like, it's not even confirmation. They're just hints. I know a lot of people point out, oh, well, they talk about transferring memories and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I get that cloning isn't necessarily something that's new to this series, but like if you're not going to actually like address it, like why didn't you just make it another villain? Like it could have been just anybody, really. So they do that, and then there's another character that shows up as like a boss fight, and they again looks like the guy, acts like the guy, fights like the guy, has the same voice actor as the guy, but then they call him something different, and then they act like, oh, was it that guy? Like, you could have just, why didn't you just address it? Like, you could have just said, hey, that's the guy, or you could have just had a different guy, and we would have been fine. So, and that's about it. Like, overall, it's fun. I just think that usually Resident Evil is a lot tighter with its storytelling. Usually, like, the characters in the story are, like, fleshed out. And, you learn enough about them throughout the game. And then when you actually have a showdown with them, you're like, all right, here we go. Here's the big showdown. Not just like people showing up and you're like, all right, I'm fighting this guy now. Then you take them out and then you get to the next guy. All right, now I'm fighting this guy now. Okay. There was like less of that in this game. There's really only like one guy that's there throughout the game. And he's an interesting enough villain. Like he's definitely got personality, but he just never really, he didn't really like have a lot of moments to shine. Like he just kind of shows up, has a good scene, and then disappears. Like you never really get to see much of him. But overall, I think it's a great game. It's definitely like for, your money's worth. It's got a good solid run time. It's got some good sequences. It's got a lot of good action in it. Yeah, the one girl that like, I mean, we call her a girl, but she's like a big, like 12-foot tall monster that chases you through a bunch of the game. Like that was definitely one of the freakiest parts of the game, and there's a couple times that get you pretty good with it. You think you're gonna like get somewhere, and then you mess up and you get trapped. There's a couple times I thought I was being clever, and then I try to do something, and the next thing you know, I'm luring a bunch of zombies down a hallway and trapping myself. Like it's it's got some really fun moments, and if you're a fan of the Resident Evil games, I can't recommend it enough. And here's hoping to more games soon. I know there's a lot of rumors about remakes. Obviously, I'm all about it. I like the idea of a good classic game being remade. Obviously, right now, I'm Personally, I'm really excited if they do Code Veronica X, just because I want to see them do something really cool with the Nosferatu-like monster. I want to see them do something really cool with that. That Antarctica setting, I think that's what it is. It's like a snow-based setting, but it'd be cool if they did some really cool, creepy stuff with that. And then, there's talk of the original Resident Evil getting made. I'm excited about that. I know a lot of people think that that's not something that needs to happen, but I think it would be really cool. I think that it's been long enough. I think it would be a good game to see get remade. And then, I know there's a lot of other ones that are being rumored, but those are the two that I would be most excited for. So there you have it. Resident Evil, my whole Resident Evil in a nutshell thing. So that's all I got for you today. My new song's out. I gave it all for you. New music video that I shot, edited, did all the effects on it myself. Really proud of it. I hope you'll go check that out. It's up on YouTube now. You can find my music everywhere at whoiswillsims.com. You can follow that website, and it'll take you to my streaming sites, to my social media pages. You can check out what I got going on. And hopefully in the next week or two, I'll have a couple new episodes out with some interviews with some awesome people. So be on the lookout for those. Anyways, peace out, everybody. Love you.